Blood. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we'll be counting down the top 10 most chilling real-life serial killers in American history.
Let me do this thing over one more time, because I know you guys pre-tape and you clip and stuff.
Right.
Number 10, Aileen Wuornos. She is one of the only female serial killers. Wuornos was abused during childhood and eventually became a prostitute to support herself. She went to jail multiple times for robbery, assault, and more, but her murders began in 1989. While her story often changed, Wuornos claimed all her victims tried to rape her before she shot them. By 1993, she was convicted of 6 murders, and she was executed by lethal injection 9 years later. In 2003, Wuornos' life story made it to the big screen, with Charlize Theron taking on the role of a monster.
To me, this world is nothing but evil, and all of us are full of evil one way or another.
Number 9, Albert DeSalvo, the Boston Strangler. While DeSalvo took the fall for these crimes, evidence suggests they were committed by more than one person. Panic struck Boston in the early 60s when 13 single women between the ages of 19 and 85 were sexually assaulted and strangled in their homes. The terror ended in 1964 when DeSalvo was arrested for rape. He soon confessed to being the Boston Strangler and was sentenced to life in prison in 1967. To this day, some proclaim his innocence, but he was found murdered in jail in 1973.
Now I'm going to tie you up. I'm going to leave. Nice straddle her. So that her hands I was sitting on, really. Because she was really fighting viciously, trying to get up, for life.
Number 8, the Zodiac Killer. Identity unknown. The Zodiac Killer plagued California in the late 1960s and early 70s by stabbing and gunning down innocent people. During the spree, the killer sent letters to local newspapers and police in which he claimed responsibility for a total of 37 murders, though police only credited him with 5 stabbings and shootings. Zodiac also left coded messages he claimed revealed his true identity, but they were never cracked. The most prominent suspect in this case was Arthur Lee Allen, who died of kidney failure in 1992. However, most experts agreed he was not the killer. The case remains unsolved. Number 7, David Berkowitz, the Son of Sam or the .44 caliber killer. The Son of Sam crimes terrified New York in the mid-1970s. Around the same time, Berkowitz allegedly joined a cult, and he later claimed his fellow cult members actually committed some of the crimes. For his own motive, he asserted that his neighbor's demon-possessed dog instructed him to kill. He cryptically explained this to police and media in a series of letters. Finally, after receiving a parking ticket near one of his shootings, Berkowitz was captured. In 1978, he was sentenced to 365 years in prison for 6 murders and 7 attempted murders. He has since become a born-again Christian and is a counselor for disturbed prisoners. Number 6, Ted Bundy, the campus killer or lady killer. Law student Bundy used his charm and good looks to lure multiple women to their deaths. The turning point in his life came when he was dumped by his first love. His first confirmed murders took place in the mid-1970s, and he continued to evade police across multiple states for years by using his forensic knowledge. To gain his victims' trust, he dressed as an authority figure or with a cast. He then hit them over the head, raped, and then strangled them. Bundy blamed pornography for his crimes, and he admitted to over 30 murders, though many have not been confirmed. He died in the electric chair in 1989.
I've met a lot of men who were motivated to commit violence just like me. And without exception, every one of them was deeply involved in pornography without question.
Number 5, Dennis Rader, the BTK killer.
Got her a glass of water, comforted her a little bit, and then I went ahead and tied her up, and then put a bag over her head and strangled her.
On the exterior, Rader's life was normal. He was married, had kids, and held down steady jobs. However, in 1974, the BTK, or Bind, Torture, Kill killer, began murdering people in Kansas by various means. Shortly thereafter, he taunted authorities with letters that described his crimes. Rader's last known murder was in 1991, and over a decade later, the case went cold with no suspect. However, in 2004, BTK resumed communications and made a number of mistakes that got him caught. Rader was sentenced to 10 consecutive life sentences with no possibility for parole for 175 years. Number 4, Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer.
Guilty.
He proved you can get away with murder, for a while. Ridgway was violent in his youth. At age 16, he stabbed a 6-year-old who survived. He eventually began frequenting prostitutes despite unwavering religious beliefs. In fact, many of his murder victims from the 80s and 90s were prostitutes or runaways whom he picked up, had sex with, strangled, then dumped near the Green River. After being suspected and cleared early in the investigation, Ridgway was finally arrested in 2001. He then confessed to 71 unconfirmed murders and was sentenced to 48 consecutive life terms in 2003. Number 3, Ed Gein, the Plainfield Ghoul or the Mad Butcher. This Wisconsin native inspired not one but 3 of the most famous movie killers. The effeminate Gein grew up with a deep attachment to his abusive mother, and he eventually decided he wanted to become a woman. Only 3 murders were actually attributed to him, but he was terrifying because he robbed graves and murdered in order to form a woman's suit he could wear. When authorities searched his house after his capture, they found paraphernalia made of human body parts littering his home. Gein died of cancer while incarcerated for 1 murder in a mental institution in 1984. Number 2, John Wayne Gacy, the Killer Clown. Gacy is why we're all afraid of clowns. This seemingly upstanding citizen dressed up as Pogo the Clown for local children's parties. However, behind the scenes, he molested teens who worked for him, in addition to other crimes. He spent 18 months in jail for sodomy before he moved and continued assaulting young boys. The murders began in 1972. He mostly assaulted, then strangled employees of his landscaping company and other male youths, then buried them around his house. He was finally arrested at the end of 1978 and was convicted of 33 murders 2 years later. Gacy was executed by lethal injection in 1994.
What was your initial emotional response?
Just to tone down the crawl space, get rid of them. Even once you bury somebody, it was already gone.
Number 1, Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee Cannibal, the Milwaukee Monster. Dahmer first became known to police as a registered sex offender. However, the murders began in 1978. Dahmer often picked up his male victims in gay bars and had sex with them before drugging and killing them. When the police finally searched his apartment, they found decomposing corpses and body parts, as well as photos of his victims in various states of torture. Dahmer is also said to have engaged in both necrophilia and cannibalism. In 1992, he was sentenced to 15 life terms, but he was beaten to death by a fellow inmate 2 years into his term.
I should have stayed with God. I tried and failed and created a Holocaust.
Do you agree with our list? Which serial killer do you think was the most despicable? For more informative top 10s published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.